Every 4 years, Americans are faced with a choice for president. They typically only have two choices, Republicans and Democrats. But every once in a while, a third-party candidate comes on the scene and starts getting attention. This is one of those years. So let's explore why this happens and what effect a third-party candidate can have on the overall election. So every 4 years, the American people are faced with the same choices that they have every other 4 years, apples and oranges. Now you can sit there and say that these are two sides of the same coin all you want. That simply isn't true. Yes, they're both fruits that grew on trees and are generally considered sweet, and yes, they're both politicians that have been bought by corporations to run for president. But their stances on the issues are completely different. They're anything but two sides of the same coin. They're different coins completely. Sometimes the apple candidate is a Red Delicious, sometimes it's a Granny Smith, and sometimes it's a Honeycrisp. Side note, have you tried a Honeycrisp apple? It will change your life. But it's always some sort of apple. The apple believes in closing the borders and not letting in any more figs or dates until we know what's going on.
Bad dates.
The orange candidate can sometimes be a navel or a tangerine or even those cute little mandarin oranges, but it's always an orange. And this orange believes that global warming isn't that big of a deal because it would allow oranges to be grown at more northern latitudes, increasing jobs. On these made-up issues, these two couldn't be more different, but it's the same for the actual issues. Many people consider it to be a bad apple season or a bad orange season or both. The apple has a few too many bruises and the orange has seeds in it. Seeds! We got rid of those years ago. What is this, 1860? Obviously not, but that is an interesting date to bring up, because it is the last time the country had an election with not 3, but 4 running parties. Not only did we have an orange and an apple candidate, but we had a banana party and lemon party candidate as well. And this severely messed things up. I shouldn't have to remind you what this election caused, but just in case. Abraham Lincoln won this election, but because of the party split, it was anything but a landslide. All 4 parties won electoral votes. Abraham Lincoln won 180 votes with 1.8 million popular votes. Breckinridge won 72 votes and 847,000 popular votes. Bell won 39 votes and 592,000 popular votes. And Douglas won 12 votes with 1.3 million popular votes. That means Lincoln won the Electoral College and the presidency, but only had 39.6% of the popular vote. Douglas, who had the least electoral votes, had 29.5% of the vote. So had the election been decided by popular vote instead, things would have ended up much more different and possibly more violent. So let's look at the election of 1824, another 4-way race. They were all from the same party, the Democratic Republicans. So imagine 4 grapefruits running against each other, and the results reflected that. Jackson won 99 electoral votes, Quincy Adams won 84, Crawford won 41, and Clay won 37. As you can see, nobody won the required, at the time, 131 votes to win. So what happens in this situation? Well, the vote goes to the House of Representatives, where they get to choose between the top 3 electoral college winners. In this case, they chose Quincy Adams, who technically got 2nd place. Keep this in mind as we move forward. That was the election that finally split the party into the Republicans and Democrats that we know and love today. But let's fast forward to the most recent election that had a third-party candidate, and the last election that a third-party candidate actually won electoral votes. In 1968, in the middle of the Civil Rights Movement, the Democrats fractured, and instead of supporting their main candidate, Humphrey, the southern states supported Wallace, the pro-segregational racist. And because of that, Nixon won. If you add the popular votes of both Humphrey and Wallace together, they would have beat Nixon by almost 10 million. And while it would take far too much math to figure this out, it would have likely changed the electoral vote as well. But as it stood, Nixon won the electoral vote and the election, which brings us to one of the biggest ways that third parties can kind of mess up an election, through the states. Because of our winner-take-all system, we can shrink down the same dynamic and play it out in a hypothetical state, where Nixon would get 32 votes, Humphrey gets 30, and Wallace gets 10. Now imagine Wallace doesn't exist. Humphrey would have won that state by quite a huge margin. But because the two existed and they were from similar parties, Nixon won the state despite not having an absolute majority. Having a third-party candidate takes away votes from other candidates. Remember, you only have one vote.
It's a two-party system. You have to vote for one of us.
You're right, this is a two-party system.
Well, I believe I'll vote for a third-party candidate.
Go ahead.
Throw your vote away!
Which brings us to now. For the last 50 years or so, Americans have had the choice between apples and oranges. Every once in a while, a banana shows up and messes up a state or two, which Nader is accused of doing in the year 2000. But for the most part, people don't take them very seriously. This year is very different though. This banana is getting a lot of attention. Perhaps it's because people think it's a particularly bad apple season or a bad orange season and they're looking for a third option, which is fair. Perhaps they're looking into the bananas policies and they really believe in them, which is also fair. But if you're voting for banana simply because you're tired of the two-party system, please stop and pay more attention to what you're doing. I'm all about voting your conscience. It's one of those things that I just feel in my heart to be true. But in my mind, I know the mathematical reality of the situation, and so do you. We're going to end up with an apple or orange president. It doesn't matter whether you vote for banana, grape, or lemon, we're going to have to deal with that apple or orange for at least the next 4 years. Normal apple voters may be turned off by this year's apple, but they absolutely cannot stand oranges. Perhaps even they're allergic to citrus. Or orange voters who are used to a more sweet flavor are finding that this year's pick is a bit more sour than they're used to. So instead of their usual lesser of two evils choice where they normally just go with the fruit that they always do, people have started looking around the grocery store and found people talking about the banana. The people haven't seen a banana in years, so many believe it to be a moderate center candidate, which is one of the main fallacies. If you actually look into its policies, which I definitely recommend you do, you may find that the banana sides more with the apples or the oranges, depending on who you mentally assigned which party. This banana, the current front-running banana, was a Republican governor for 12 years, ran for president twice as a Republican, and only this year decided to join the banana party. But the banana is receiving a lot of attention this year, possibly due to the toxic nature of the political climate. Many voters who have never seen a legitimate third-party candidate and think it's not possible are starting to warm up to the idea, but many others are just voting for banana out of spite.
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
The banana knows that it can't win by normal methods. Here's a quote from its campaign's Facebook page. "We can stop Hillary and Trump from getting the critical 270 electoral votes they need to win." Here's where I would normally ask, do you know what happens if nobody gets the critical 270 electoral votes? But you already know because I told you a few minutes ago. The banana knows too. Here's another quote. "If no candidate receives 270 electoral votes, the election goes to the House of Representatives. From there, the House selects from one of the candidates that received at least one electoral vote." This is incorrect. They choose from the top 3 winners in the Electoral College. The banana is assuming that it will be the one and only third-party candidate. There's a grape party candidate running in Utah who's pulling significant numbers, and if he wins the state, that would make 4 electoral winners. If he doesn't win, he may pull enough votes away from their usual candidate, and Utah may align with a state that it hasn't voted for since the civil rights movement. But back to the banana. If its only real goal is to disrupt the political process and make us invoke a rule that we haven't used in 192 years, that's not a noble goal. People are already jaded with the system and feel that it's rigged. There's plenty of things wrong with our electoral college system and our voting system in general. I recommend you check out CGP Gray's videos on these topics. But this is the 4th quarter. We can't change the rules now. This is the game that we're playing. And if the banana gets its way and neither of the 2 major parties wins by popular vote, it goes to the currently Republican-controlled House, where I assure you even more people will consider it rigged no matter who wins. Especially if they don't choose one of the main 2 candidates, the apple or the orange, who will likely earn the majority of the popular vote, but instead go for a smaller third-party candidate. I can't say we'd go into a rebellion, but the word chaos seems fairly appropriate, and that seems to be the only way the banana can win. I don't believe that the banana truly wants to win by that method, as I'm sure it knows what kind of disaster that would create. Which means there must be a more sinister motive behind its ambitions. If a party receives at least 5% of the national popular vote, they get access to federal funding for the next general election cycle. Some say that this would make a third party more relevant in the next election. Personally, I think this election is far too important to start messing around with future checks for political parties. We have a 2-party system in this country, not out of choice or laziness, but because of the mathematical eventuality of our voting system. The Electoral College and the winner-take-all electoral system it uses lends itself to there being only 2 parties, and trying to throw a wrench into that system by voting for a third-party candidate will do little good. At worst, it'll put the election in the hands of the most hated Congress this country has ever seen, and at best, it'll let the person you least want in office win. Apples and oranges are the only real choice that you have this election. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I feel in my heart that voting your conscience is the right thing to do, but it's not the smart thing to do. Take the presidential quiz that I linked down below to find out who you most align with. If after taking that you find that banana is your choice, then by all means vote for banana. But if you're only voting for banana because you hate the apples and oranges this year, beware. You're gonna end up with an apple or an orange whether you like it or not for at least the next 4 years, and your vote could have changed that. And much like having to take a class from a professor that you hate, you're gonna have to try to find a way to make it work. This goes for everyone, apples, oranges, and bananas. Don't spend the next 4 years whining and complaining about how much you hate this professor and actively working to make sure nothing in class gets done. Because in the end, we'll all have that F on our report cards. And you don't get to complain for the next 4 years that you had a bad teacher or that you voted for banana. Nobody cares. In fact, they're probably gonna blame you more than someone who voted for a major party candidate. Complaining about the election, especially if your plan is to actively work against the apple or the orange so that they look worse in future elections, is one of the most damaging things you can do to this country. Just look at the last 16 years or so. So if you or someone you know is currently thinking of voting third party, ask them to think long and hard about the lesser of 2 evils argument. Do they really want to vote for the banana, or do they just want to watch the world burn? Know who you are voting for beforehand, and don't let this be another Brexit situation, because now you know better. Hey guys, before I get into my usual outro stuff, I just wanted to let you know that I'll be live streaming during the final presidential debate. So if you'd like to hear my thoughts or maybe some clarifications on what's going on, make sure to watch. I'm also considering making the bumper stickers that you saw during this episode into merchandise, so leave a comment if you're interested. But if you enjoyed this episode or you learned something, make sure to give that like button a click. If you'd like to see more from me, I put out new videos every weekend, so go ahead and vote for that subscribe button. In the meantime, if you'd like to see one of my older videos, how about this one?